know if you're able to see my screen. If someone is able to, are you able to view it?
Well, I can see the screen.
The screen is projecting? Okay, fantastic.
Презентацию.
Всем видно, да.
Yes, you're on.
The screen is projecting okay?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So as was mentioned, I am a National Geographic Explorer, but that's a rather recent role. I'm normally a teacher and an educator of environmental sciences in Florida. And I wanted to share with you today the importance of storytelling about your own community and the importance of citizen science taking action within your community, and how it doesn't matter what age you are, anyone is able to be an explorer. And all it really takes is being curious. So I would ask you to think for a moment, if you could share one story with the world about your community, what story would you share? What story comes to mind about your community? Is it your school community or your home? Is it a natural space? Is it a location where you have business and commerce, or where you find your food sources? What would be the story, if you could only choose one, what would you want to share about your community and share it with the rest of the world? So I'm going to hope that my video plays and take you on a little tour of where we are in Florida and share some pictures and storytelling experiences of our hometown and our sense of place in Florida. So as we fly from Kazakhstan over to Florida, you can see that we are located towards the east coast, the Atlantic Ocean of Florida. And this is our school for high school grades 9 through 12. And you can see that our school campus has a lot of, well, it flew off screen real fast, but it has a lot of natural spaces in the area. And so surrounding the school, there are a lot of forests and wetland areas that the students are able to explore and see how the school impacts our community around the school. But you can also see that there are many impacts taking place on our school property. So we have some sports fields where students play athletics in the afternoon. We have a large student population, so we have a lot of parking spaces. And then we have a rather large building for our school and classrooms. But my favorite area on our school campus is this forested area here in the middle of our schoolyard. And this is what I call the outdoor classroom, where we do all of our citizen science and our research. So if you were to be an explorer, what would you choose to explore? What are you curious about? Again, I was asking you to think about one story that you would share about your community. Maybe that would be your starting point to explore further. But I want to share with you a short video of what some National Geographic explorers do every day in their lives as part of their career and as part of what makes them curious about the world around them. So notice some things that stand out about that video. That video always makes me smile. And if you have access to YouTube, you can look up National Geographic Explorer and watch that short video again. And one of the things I love about that video is it shows many different explorers telling many different stories and using quite a few different tools to do so. You notice that they have cameras and binoculars and GIS units, but they're also outside in the field. You hear one of them say that they don't mind getting dirty when they're outside exploring the world around them. And most importantly, one of them says that they want to be a change and to help make change in the world. And that's what it is to be an explorer. And I want to encourage you that it doesn't matter how old you are to be an explorer. Again, it all starts with the attitude, the life skill of being curious about the world around you. So with that in mind, I share with my students different ways to be an explorer, and you will see quite a few of the citizen science that we participate in as they explore the world in our community and practice citizen science using tools and technologies, including cameras, cell phones, and apps on their cell phones, and GIS devices to better understand what science they're seeing in our community and to better share that science with community members outside of our school. So I mentioned that explorers are curious, and that really comes down to the love for asking questions about what's happening in the world around you, being curious about the world around you, loving the idea of learning and discovering new information. So if you're not sure about something, that's okay. And your teachers are always available to help with clarification and providing new information. But it's also really important as an explorer to go out and find the information yourself. If you're unsure about something, learn more about it. Take some time to research. Take some time to investigate and learn the changes that are taking place within your own community. But then there's one more step that's really important, and that's being sure that you can communicate what you learn to others around you and help to share your knowledge as an explorer so that others can also learn from your discoveries. So here you can see my students regularly take a trip to a nearby estuary or a place along the Atlantic coast of Florida where our freshwater river system meets the saltwater ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. And in this estuary, there is a high amount of biodiversity, especially fish and crabs, oysters, shrimp, as well as birds, alligators, snakes, quite a lot of different things to discover. And hopefully many of the students don't get too close to alligators or to any concerning snakes, but we do have quite a high biodiversity in our area. So every year they take a trip to this estuary, and here you can see students are actively using citizen science by using some of the tools and techniques that researchers would use to capture fish, determine which different species and how many of the fish are found in each net, and then quickly release those species back to the water to ensure that they remain healthy and are able to go on in their life cycle. So during this trip, during the citizen science project, students have to work together as a team, and they have to move very quickly in order to ensure that they're able to capture their data necessary while still being able to return the fish to the water in a timely manner so that the fish are able to survive. So teamwork is an important skill here, but you can see it ends up being quite a fun day. And just as the explorers in the video mentioned, these students are not afraid to get dirty on this particular field trip. Here we have a field studies program in a different community. And when I say different community, I'm showcasing some of the global community that students have explored. And in this tropical rainforest ecosystem of a different location in Costa Rica, students have found a comparison of biodiversity to look at and to think about how does this biodiversity in this location compare to their home site of Florida. And so we have some species in this picture, such as the howler monkey that is eating a bean pod in the tree up at the top corner of the picture. And we don't have monkeys in Florida, so it's a neat discovery for students to see an organism that's different from the organisms we would find in Florida. But at the same time, many students often notice in their field studies that there are a lot of species that are similar, and especially a lot of relationships that are similar from one location to the other when it comes to biodiversity. The other thing that students practice with citizen science in this particular field experience is with looking at trash and mapping debris that exists within the communities. And then they return home and they start looking at how trash and debris in their community impacts their local waterway in Florida. There are a lot of different species that students have captured from other trips over the years. Here you can see quite a diverse array of species from different pictures that students have captured on their own travels. Some are within their community, such as the birds here in the picture. These are birds that migrate from Central and South America up into Florida during April and May of our spring. And so students are able to talk about migratory species and how those migratory species move from different continents here in the Northern Hemisphere. And then also students have taken the time to share with me some of the other pictures of biodiversity that they've captured on their travels. And it becomes a great opportunity, a very simple citizen science project for students to share with each other some of the different images and stories that they captured in their pictures as they travel both in Florida and elsewhere in the world. And some of the places are maybe a community or two communities over from our home, and then some of them are a little further away. But the point is that it doesn't matter. Explorers are curious and explorers observe the world around them. And here you can see how students are taking the simple tool of a camera and they're capturing images that they're able to share with each other and share with their community to be part of the storytelling experience. And then the other citizen science project that is probably the most commonly discussed within my class and among my students is change taking place within our community. And you can see that change happens in a number of different ways in these pictures. And realistically, change in any community happens in many different ways. And that change is taking place all over the world as more and more people are settling in more areas and more natural spaces. So here on the left-hand side of the screen, you see students that are currently collecting water quality information from the local ponds around our schoolyard. And they're trying to determine how water quality changes will cause impacts on some of the leaf and vegetation ecosystems and some of the macroinvertebrates or the insects that live within the leaf litter. As you can see, Kenny in the picture on the bottom left is holding up a bag of leaves that has been placed within our local pond on our school campus. And over time, we're able to investigate how many insects are preferring to live within the leaves, within the debris, and how do water quality changes potentially cause change with insects and organisms on our school campus. Currently, a lot of development and human habitation, human areas, residences are taking place in the community around us. And so more and more trees are being cut down to build home sites, communities. And what we're noticing, and here in this center picture, you can see that students are drawing changes to that forest wetland that exists within the center of our schoolyard. And we've seen that as some of the houses are being developed directly around our schoolyard, there's less water flow going into these ponds that you see in the picture on the bottom left. And as less water flows into the ponds, not only is the water quality changing, but also the wetland area in the center of our schoolyard is drying out. So there's not as much water there as there used to be, and therefore there are a lot of changes taking place to the plant species that used to exist, the native plant species within our wetland area. And the decline of the plant species directly impacts some organisms such as the gopher tortoise. And here you can see in the top right-hand corner, there is a tiny little gopher tortoise. This is a tortoise or a turtle species that does not live in the water. It lives only on land. It happens to also be what's known as a keystone species, and the gopher tortoise builds a home in the ground of wetland areas, but that home provides shelter to over 100 other species within the native Florida ecosystems. And so as our wetland areas and as our forests around our school are starting to dry out, these gopher tortoises are being impacted, and likewise the 100 other species that occupy their burrows or their homes are also impacted. And so students oftentimes will not only collect data from their citizen science projects, but then they'll share their data with younger students in younger grades and help those younger grades better understand how they can be the change that they wish to see in the world and how they can make impacts and decisions that will have less of a negative influence on their community. So you can see that there are a number of different ways, that students are participating throughout the year with citizen science projects around our school and around our community. And again, all that matters is that they're curious and they're asking their own questions.
Ali,
Here,
I'm so
yes.
if I could take a couple of minutes to clarify and to explain some of the things for some of our audience.
Absolutely.
English. Thank you. Құрметті әріптестер, құрметті оқушылар, түсінбегендеріңізге мына кішігірім осы қазірге дейін айтылғанды айтып өтейін. Негізгі мәселе мынау қоршаған ортаны зерттеу мәселесінде, қызығушылықты тудыру мәселесінде мынау citizen science деген нәрсе бар. Citizen science деген сөзбе-сөз аударатын болсақ, ол мынау тұрғындардың, кәдімгі қарапайым тұрғындардың ғылымды қолдана отыра қоршаған орта мәселесін, қоғамдағы мәселелерді көтеру және шешу жолдарын ұсыну. Бұны қалай, мысалы, біздің спикеріміздің түсіндіріп жатқаны мектептерінде сабақ барысында осы citizen science-ті қалай қолданатыны. Яғни, ол жаңағы өзі картада көрсеткендей, мектептің ортасында кішігірім тоғай бар. Сол тоғайды оқушылармен бұл кісілер жыл сайын зерттеп отырады. Қанша қоңыз, шыбын шіркей бар, судың үлкеюі, судың азаюы, жаңағы территорияға кіретін жаңағы судың азайып көбеюі, жаңағы сол жақтағы фаунаға, флора қалай әсер ететіні, және жаңағыдай мобильный телефоны болсын, қандай кез келген аппарат болсын, мысалы көшеде көрген қоқыс болсын, бір басқа бір елең жағдайлар болсын, соның бәрін белгілеу арқылы, белгілі бір аппликейшндар арқылы, қолдану арқылы картада белгілеп, яғни сабақта өткен ғылымнан үйренген заттарын көшеде іс жүзінде қолдану. Яғни ол судың деңгейін тексеру болсын, қоршаған орта мәселелерін қозғау болсын, болмаса мына суретте өздеріңіз көріп отқандай әртүрлі құрылғыларды қолдану арқылы жазғы программалары, жаздық осындай өздеріңіз өтіп жатқан сияқты бағдарламалар барысында сол мектепте үйренген теорияларын іс барысында қолдану. Яғни осының бәрі бір сөзбен айтқанда терминологиясында citizen science деп аталады. Сол citizen science-тың үлкен бір элементі, ол мына кісі жаңағыдай осы мынау дәл осы бәріміз көріп отқан слайдта айтып отқандай, ол change дейді, яғни өзгеріс. Яғни біздің қоғамымызда қандай өзгерістер орын алып жатыр. Ол экологияның өзгеруі, ауаның ластануы, болмаса жаңағыдай ормандардың азаюы, осы өзгерістерге мән беру арқылы оқушылар жаңағы мектепте алған білімдерін осы өзгерістерді өлшеу үшін, өзгерістерді белгілеу үшін және өзгерістердің бағытын бақылау үшін қолданады. Осы бағытта мына біреу суреттерде көрсетілгендей оқушылар ол өзінің туған елінен бөлек, сіздерде туған елге тағзым деген бағдарламаларыңыз бар, сол сияқты өздеріңіздің тұратын облыс қалаларыңыздан бөлек басқа жерлерде тұратын жануарлар, өсімдіктерді зерттеу арқылы жаңағы оқушылардың қызығушылығын ояту және сол мектеп лабораторияларында, мектеп класстарда үйренген білімдеріңізді сол сыртқа шыққан кезде қолдану. Бұның мысалы ретінде жаңағы Алисияның мысалы недегі оқушыларының жаңағы Коста-Рикаға шыққан кездегі сондай зерттеушілік бағдарламалары, жаңағы басқа елдерге, болмаса басқа штаттарға шыққан кезде өздерінде кездестірмейтін аң құстарды, өсімдіктерді зерттеу арқылы жаңағы мектепте алған теорияларын іс жүзінде қолданады. Ал енді ары қарай тыңдайық. Кейін белгілі бір уақытта мен тоқтатып тағы бір кішігірім түсіндіріп жіберемін. Thank you, Alicia. You can go ahead, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry if I was talking too fast.
That's all right, that's right.
So I mentioned that the important thing is to be curious, to use tools and to use technologies to capture moments and to practice citizen science through exploration and asking good questions and thinking about what is important within your community. And once you think about what are the important questions within your community and how are you going to capture those questions through pictures and through technologies, again, the important thing is to share your story with others and to share your experience or to share your knowledge that you learn with others in your community to make change or to be the change. And here you can see a number of ways that my students are using citizen science to collect data in their community and then to share with especially younger students and younger groups that are going to be learning behind them in school. So the pictures on the left, you see students that are also collecting water quality samples, and they're also determining how much trash in the community is going to directly go into our local waterway. So as students move from one classroom to another on our school campus, if they throw their trash on the ground during a rainstorm, how much of that trash goes into our ponds and our waterways around the school, and how does that impact water quality? Additionally, with the pictures on the right, students are outside in the field and they're looking at plant species in our upland wetland area, and then they're using GIS to determine how plant species and different types of species have changed over time as that wetland on campus is drying out. And again, it all comes back to sharing with the younger audience. And here in the middle picture, you see some of the high school students that are sharing the GIS data collected with the younger students that are in this picture. So I wanted to share one more short video clip with you on the importance of why everyone should become an explorer. And again, it's because of you guys, because of you. It doesn't matter what age you are. It's important that everyone be curious about the world around them and think like an explorer so that they can help make change to important issues that they see in their community. I love that. We will lead. So as you have the opportunity to be an explorer, and as the video says, you have an opportunity to be a world of global change makers, even in your community, starting with issues that you feel are important within your community or stories that you wish to share within your community. There are so many different ways that you can participate in citizen science. You can get out and explore your community, but you can also start to address some of the challenges or some of the issues that perhaps exist within your community. And then from there, become a global change maker. Share some of your discoveries with other younger students in your communities. And be sure to take pictures, share your stories with others. And I will return to my original question and ask you, with a project idea, if you could go outside and explore your community, would you know some of the different species that you would find? Plant or animal? Do you know the names of those species? If you don't know their names, what resources can you use to learn their names? And how can you capture the story of those species in your community on a device such as a phone or with a camera to better understand and share the story of that species or of those species within your community? Here are some of my students that are doing just that, going out into our wetland area and taking pictures and using an app called iNaturalist to discover species, and then again to discover some of the impacts from trash on our species and on our ecosystems on campus. When they cannot capture pictures with a camera, they draw a lot of pictures, as I was showing you earlier as well. And I know this is a long list of different ways to be explorers in your community, but the bottom line is to be curious, again, to learn information and discover new things, to have a sense of responsibility and respect for others, to be sure that you are able to contribute and make a difference, to observe the world around you, and then don't forget to tell stories and communicate with others and share what you have learned with the rest of the world. I love this quote. Anyone can be an explorer. You do not have to go somewhere far away. You just have to be curious and spend time looking. And you can do that in as close of a location as your home or around your school, and addressing issues within your community. So I would ask you again the same question I asked at the beginning. If you could share one thing with the world, what one story would you share about your community, and how would you capture that within pictures of your community? So think about that, because I would love to invite each of you to take pictures and share them with my students. And in turn, I would love for my students to share some of their pictures with you so we could compare. And if you're interested, I'm sure that your teachers would be more than willing to share my contact information, and I'd love to see some of your pictures and images. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. It was a very interesting presentation. If I could take another minute to explain some of the things to our colleagues. Thank you. And then we can go back to Q&A then. Құрметті әріптестер, соңғы презентациялар туралы қысқаша түсіндіріп өтейін. Мынау зерттеуші болу үшін ең маңыздысы мынау біреу жас буынға, жас зерттеушілерге, жас мамандарға, қандай жаста болмасын, ол негізі мынау табиғи жасқа байланысты нәрсе емес дейді. Ол кез келген жаста бастай алатын нәрсе. Ол сіз кәрісіз ба, жассыз ба, мектеп жасында мектеп бітірдіңіз бе, зерттеуші болу үшін ол маңызды фактор емес. Кез келген жаста адам зерттеуші бола алады дейді. Бірақ зерттеушіліктің алдында айтып өткендей, 2-3 негізгі элементтер бар дейді. Олардың біреуі жаңағыдай алдында өзгерістерді іздеу болса, екінші тағы бір өте маңызды элементі ол коммуникация дейді. Яғни коммуникация дағдысы. Яғни көргеніңді, білгеніңді, үйренгеніңді басқаларға жеткізу және дұрыс жеткізу және бөлісу дейді. Оны жаңағыдай өз алдындағы презентацияда көрсеткендей, үлкен сыныптың оқушылары өздері сабақтарында өткенді келесі өздерінен жас оқушыларға кейінгі сыныптарға үйретіп, олардың қалай қолдану керек екенін, ол технология болса қалай қолдану керек екенін, және жаңағыдай жаңадан өтіп жатқан тақырып болса, аң құс болса, оның қайдан келетінін, қайда тұратынын түсіндіріп жатқан суреттер. Яғни қысқаша айтқанда өз тәжірибесімен бөлісе білу дағдысы. Солардың мысалы ретінде олар мектептің ауласында мынандай кішігірім эксперименттер жасайды. Мысалы, қоқысты тастап, ол қоқысты дұрыс жеріне емес келген жерде тастайсаң, оның жаңбыр жауған кезде жаңбыр суымен ағып, ақырында қайда баратынын зерттеу. Сондай және мектептің территориясында кішігірім өзендер тұр, мысалы сулар тұр, солардың көбеюі немесе азаю қандай факторларға байланысты екенін. Қысқаша айтқан кезде осындай citizen science демекші, жаңағыдай қоршаған ортаны зерттейтін, қорғайтын адамды тәрбиелеп бағу үшін ең бірінші мәселе дейді, ол оларда қызығушылықты ояту осы мәселелерге. Оның бәрі жаңағыдай жүзеге асатын инструменті, ол механизмі, ол citizen science, яғни ғылымды өзіміздің ортаны, қоғамды өзгерту бағытында қолдану. Сонымен ең маңызды нәрсе дейді, бұл әлемді өзгертеміз десек, яғни global change makers деп жатқанда, яғни әлемді өзгертетін сондай күш боламыз десек, яғни сондай ең тылсым күш бұл сіздер мен біздер, яғни адамдар. Ал енді сондай әлемді өзгертетін global change maker болу үшін ең бірінші сіз неден бастауымыз керек? Өзіміз тұратын ортадан бастауымыз керек, өзіміз тұратын қоғамнан бастауымыз керек дейді. Соны зерттеуден бастауымыз керек, соның мәселелерін, проблемаларын зерттеуден, соларды білуден бастауымыз керек. Айналамызда тұратын жаңағыдай құстар мен өсімдіктерді зерттеумен бастауымыз керек дейді. Және бұл кісінің сұрап жатқан сұрағы, және презентацияның ең басында да сұраған сол сұрақ, өздеріңіз тұратын ортаны жақсы білесіздер ме? Сол ортада тұратын өсетін өсімдіктерді, тұратын аңдарды, құстарды жақсы білесіздер ме? Ал егер білмейтін болсаңыздар, оларды қалай зерттейсіздер? Қай жерден олар туралы білуге болатынын білесіздер ме дейді. Яғни бұл айналамызды зерттеуге қызығушылық. Және сол қызығушылықты қайдан іздейміз, қайдан табамыз? Сол сияқты мысалдардың бәрі, мысалы, тәжірибені бөлісудің бір мысалы, дәл осы презентацияда көрсетілген бұл iNaturalist деген application, яғни сондай программа мобильный. Ода не істейді? Ода оқушылар өздері зерттеген, өздері тапқан, өздері байқаған бір өзгерістерді, аңдарды, құстарды осы жерге салу арқылы бір-бірімен бөліседі. Және соны бөлісу арқылы басқалардың қызығушылығын оятады. Енді бұл Алиша ханым өзінің оқушыларының, студенттерінің жасаған түсірген суреттерін, жасаған зерттеулерін, суреттермен сіздермен бөлісуге өте қызығушылық білдіріп отыр. Сол сияқты сіздер де өздеріңіз осындай зерттеушілік жұмыстарыңызды, осындай жаңадан ортаны, қоршаған ортаңызды, айналаңызды зерттеп тапқан жаңа дүниелеріңізді өйстіп бөліссеңіздер, осыдан ары қарай бір-бірімізбен осындай тәжірибемізді бөлісіп, оқушылар да бір-бірімен танысып, тәжірибелерін бөлісе алатын осындай жаңа платформа болады дейді. Ал рахмет, мен қайттан берейін микрофон. Thank you, Ali. I'm done.
Absolutely, thank you. And again, I hope I was not going too fast, but I really would love to be able to see some of the pictures and images that you capture around your community. And in turn, my students would love to share some of the pictures from our community with you. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer some questions, and going forward, we would love to connect my classroom with your classroom.
Ұстаздардың назарына жаңағы электрон адрес бойынша сіздердің оқушыларыңыздың осындай зерттеушілік бағытында, зерттеу барысында, сабақ барысында зерттеген, қоршаған ортада түсірген суреттерін бөліссеңіздер, мен де өзім студенттермен сондай жұмыстармен бөлісейін, және студент келесі рет осындай студент класс пен класс, сынып пен сынып болып, видео арқылы студенттермен сөйлессек те болады. Ал енді сұрақ-жауапқа көшсек болады. Ну, теперь можно задавать вопросы, коллеги. Оқушылар бағана сұрақтар дайындап отырған сияқты, сұраймыз деп.
This is normally the part where my students get very quiet all of a sudden and a little shy.
Apparently students are all the same all over the world.
Yes.
Дәл осы жерге келген кезде, сұрақ қойыңдар деген кезде, мен студенттерім көбінесе дауыстары шықпай қалады.
Hello. At first, thank you so much for your presentation, your speech. It was really interesting to hear you, to see you. We're really thankful for this. And my question, at first, I would like to a bit know more about you, about how you actually got into working with youth. Why did you actually choose this? And how your work with National Geographic goes? Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your wonderful question. So I often talk more about my students than myself because I do really love watching the learning process through my students with our environmental science and outdoor class. I am a teacher first and foremost because I love working with our class each day and learning in our community and learning in our outdoor classroom. I did not intend to become a National Geographic Explorer. I was not expecting to become a National Geographic Explorer. That was a wonderful surprise. But again, it was a moment that happened because of all the things that I have been doing with my students the past many years to learn about our community and to find ways of helping to bring change to some of the important issues taking place within our community. Some of the biggest issues in our community in Florida is, as I mentioned, a lot of development, a lot of housing is going into our community, and many forests, many trees, and many natural areas are being filled in for houses. And at the same time, we're seeing a lot of trash and a lot of changes to our community that cause concern for the students. And so using GIS and using cameras and other tools, the students wanted to share how they could make change within their community and to share that change with others. And through that process and through citizen science, National Geographic really has been interested in what our students are doing, and in turn has asked me to be an explorer and share more with students like you, and hopefully be able to partner and collaborate further with other students in other places around the world.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Сұрақтар бар ма тағы? Any other questions, colleagues? Сұрақтар болса қоя беріңіздер, аударып мына жақта түсіндіріп береміз. There we go.
Workshop. So I would like to say thank you, and also I would like to ask you about your job, because today we have, as students, we have some troubles finding our careers. So how did you find this career when you was like a little bit younger?
I'm sorry, I heard only a part of the question. And thank you for asking the question. Do you mind repeating a little of the question? I think the volume was a little down. I know with the masks, I have trouble with the masks to hear.
Okay. So I was asking about your career. How did you choose it when you was much younger? Like right now, as teenagers, we have some troubles with choosing our future careers, our future like. So how did you understand that you will be a teacher in the future?
I'm still not able to hear very well. Is someone able to translate for me a little of the, if you're able to, I think it's the microphone. I apologize.
На русском я попробую.
На русском говори. Погромче на русском.
Как вы выбрали карьеру, когда были такими же подростками, как и мы?
Отлично, спасибо. So, how did you choose your career when you were a teenager, just like us? How did you end up being an environmental teacher?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I apologize that my microphone is not picking that up for some reason. I have always loved the natural world and being outside. I love learning about new species. And when I was in school, I had the opportunity to first work with sea turtles in the Atlantic Ocean that come in to nest along the Florida beaches. And I was working with sea turtles, and I was trying to help with their conservation and helping to educate the community about the importance of watching out for sea turtle nests on our beaches. We have a lot of visitors to our beaches during the warm summer months, and oftentimes the sea turtle nests end up being damaged because of a lot of visitors to the beach. So I had, as a young student, started to share information with other community members about the importance of helping to protect sea turtle nests. And in that process, I found that I loved the education side of sharing with others in my community. And that was my way of storytelling, was to share information about the importance of species and conservation issues within our community. And so I wanted to focus my interest in education towards a younger audience, because I do believe that you guys are the ones who are going to be the change. Adults don't always do such a good job with making decisions, so we need you guys to make the better decisions for us sometimes. And so I became a teacher to try to encourage a younger generation of change makers to play their part in whatever passions and interests they have to help change our community for the better.
Thank you, Ali. Все поняли,
That's
да?
a great question.
Yeah, indeed. Теңіз таспалары студент ретінде жаңағыдай судың жағасында жүрген кісілер бас кетпесін деп соларды қайтадан суға апарып, соларды адамдарға сол туралы түсіндіріп жүріп, содан бастаған сапары. Кейін соны түсіндіру арқылы, ақпарат тарату арқылы өзінің ұстаздыққа жақын екенін байқаған. Сөйтіп ұстаз болған кейін өсе келе. Сұрақтарын қойып.
Hello. First off, thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and useful information for us, for your wonderful speech. And my question is, what was the biggest achievement or the interesting thing that in your exploration experience so far?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you. Oh, my
You didn't think
biggest.
you could get away with easy questions, did you?
No, that's a great question. I have to have a moment to think about that. My students and I had an opportunity to look at, I mentioned trash problems within our community, and more of my students were starting to see problems with trash around our school campus. And one of the biggest highlights that we had even this school year was seeing a lot of trash from face masks. The new face mask issue was causing a lot of students to toss their face mask onto the ground or dispose of face masks improperly around our schoolyard. And so actually a student put together a campaign on campus to help encourage students to dispose of their face masks into the trash cans instead of having the face masks end up in our local waterways, which is what's been happening. I don't know if you have that same situation in your community, but in our community, it was a really big problem. So that was a most recent success that we've had for being mindful about our impacts in our community and using ways to respond to changes from our COVID situation with being able to address real issues that were taking place. In terms of bigger, broader discoveries, I mentioned I was not expecting to become a National Geographic Explorer. I always thought that that was something that you see on the National Geographic magazine for lucky people and could never happen to the average student or the average teacher. And I did cry when I first learned that I was going to be a National Geographic Explorer, because I do remember reading the yellow National Geographic magazines when I was a young girl and daydreaming about traveling the world and meeting other people and learning from others and the stories that they had to share. And it is now my privilege and my pleasure to be able to learn from other people, including from other younger students in other parts of the world, and be able to share some of that information with students in my community. So that is truly a pleasure and a benefit of being an explorer. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you a lot.
Әріптестер, бір түсіндіре салайын. Оқушымыздың қойған сұрағы, жаңағы өзіңіздің зерттеушілік мансабыңызда ең қызықты, ең сондай бір керемет істе қалған оқиғаларын бөліссеңіз деді. Ол кісінің айтқан мысалы, осы соңғы кезде мынау пандемияға байланысты алдында айтқан қоқыс мәселесі біздің қоғамда үлкен проблемаға айналып жатыр еді. Сол пандемия басталысымен біреу маскаларды тастау мәселесі шықты. Соны бір оқушысы шешімін ұсынған, есіне салған соңғысы. Одан бөлек, егер үлкенірек қарайтын болсақ, мәселеге ол жаңағыдай National Geographic Explorer деген награда, атақты алу, яғни кішкентай кезінен жастайынан оқып өскен журналдан ондай зерттеушілердің өміріне қызығып өскен, бірақ ол солардың біреуі болу, ол бір тек қана түсінде ғана көре алатын нәрсе шығар деп ойлағам дейді. Yani қарапайым адам, қарапайым ұстаз ондай деңгейге жете алмайтын шығар деп ойлағам дейді. Бірақ сондай марапатталған кезде жылап жібердім дейді. Және оның өзіме бір жақсы жағы, мен сол жақтан үйренген білгенімді басқалармен бөлісуге бір керемет мүмкіндік дейді. Ал рахмет, келесі сұрақ. Next question, please.
Hello. Okay, I want to ask you about, is it necessary to have a geological or biological education for being a nature photographer?
That is a great question. There are so many different ways that you can study for a career. And I would encourage you to learn as much as you can about everything that you can, within reason. If you have a passion or an interest, pursue it. If you're curious about something, learn more about it. Don't hold back or allow any fear to keep you from learning and discovering something new about the world around you. But if you have a passion for something, it doesn't matter what subject focus you're trying for, that passion will come out in the end. You will have the ability to learn and to discover new things and have success in whatever career you are trying to achieve. For example, as a teacher of environmental science, I actively have had to take courses in biology and geology, but in order to be a storyteller, I've also had to learn photography. I've had to learn how to share and communicate and go through team building exercises with others, both my age and with students, and help my students learn how to communicate with each other and communicate with others in their community. I also have had to take geography classes and learn about other cultures and other societies and different ways of life. And that's important as well when you're trying to tell a story about the natural or the human world around you. Because keep in mind that humans greatly impact the natural world, so they kind of go together. There is no separation there. So whether you are interested in the sciences or interested in the social sciences with people, there is always a geographic component or a geography component that exists there that's important to learn. And then in trying to capture those stories, the photography and the mapping and geographic technologies are important to learn about as well. So really, if you have an interest in something, pursue it and see where that interest goes, and don't hold back on allowing your passions to help lead you into a career that you're very excited about.
Thank you, Ali. That's really useful. And one more last question. Соңғы бір сұрақ бар ма екен? Және болмаса?
Hello. First of all, I'm grateful for you sharing your experience with us. So my question is, who or what made you love exploring the natural world?
That is an excellent question. When I was 10 years old, I remember wanting to be Jane Goodall, the woman who does a lot of research with chimpanzees in Africa. And I didn't think I would ever travel to Africa, and I have not been to Africa, but I remember wanting to be her. She was my role model. And I read a book once by Jane Goodall, and she talked about being a young student of about 14 years of age, and she would sit in her yard and she would observe the animals in her yard. And she would sit out there for hours watching a chicken in her yard eat and peck at the grass. And she would watch her dog play for hours at a time and just learn animal behaviors. And I thought that was very interesting. Wouldn't she get bored? And yet, as I found myself attracted to that role of Jane Goodall and her experience, I found myself increasingly interested in the natural world around my home. And I never did sit in the yard and watch a chicken peck at the ground for many hours, but I did start asking myself, do I know some of the different species in my yard? Do I know how they interact with each other? What are some of the different things that I see in my home? And then how does it compare to other things that are different in other communities? And so I just started asking questions about the world outside my door. In my classroom, I found myself always looking out the window, and on a sunny day, I would always want to be outside. And increasingly, I found myself with the opportunity to be outside, learning things in an outdoor setting. And so being able to now teach students in an outdoor setting and enabling us to be practicing and getting our hands dirty and being around water and being in forests and learning about those species citizen science is a fantastic way to connect all of those interests together. And it did all start with Jane Goodall and her book about being a young, curious explorer herself.
Thank you, Ali. I think that's something that students could add to their shelf for the summer reading.
I will certainly share that book. Yes, I will share that, the name of the book, and please pass it along.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali, for your time, for the presentation. We really appreciate that you, at what, 10 p.m., 11 p.m. your time, have dedicated your time to explain what the exploration is. And we'll look forward to getting in touch with your students too. And we hope we can organize something physical once we are done with the pandemic, and we can meet physically with the students, with you in a huge classroom, and share our experiences, not only with students, but also with teachers who are online and listening to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Барлықтарыңызға рахмет. Алиша ханымға мына жерде жаңағы түнгі 11:30 болды, бұл кісіге осыны түсіндірген үшін рахметін алғысымды айтып жатырмын. Егер жағдай жақсарып жатса, бұл кісімен жаңағыдай бетпе-бет барлықтарыңызбен бір бөлмеде жиналып тәжірибе бөлісетін үлкен бір іс-шара ұйымдастырсақ болады деп жатырмын. Рахмет барлықтарыңызға. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy your day. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, Alicia. Good night. Bye.
Good night and good morning. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers.